Hey, what's up, dudes? HW here, just hanging out. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning over in Nashville, and I'm drinking my coffee. I saw this Chappers video. I'm out of coffee. I saw this Chappers video, and he's talking about John Hornsby Skews, JHS, the distributor over in Europe. Not the pedal company, is going out of business. They're shutting their doors. And it was kind of talking about like why is that happening? And you know, the way Chappers was putting it, I love Chappers, by the way. I've been watching Chappers forever. The way he was putting it was like, you know, like it's a big loss and, you know, it's really sad. And I think a lot of that was nostalgia. Rob talks about that he had worked with those companies and stuff. But I'll tell you, as someone who has not worked at that company, who's just on YouTube, who like runs a business selling presets and captures stuff for modelers and also does some YouTube-y stuff like reviews and things. I've been sent some guitars and stuff from companies. I've never worked with Vintage, never worked with FretKing, but I have purchased some of those guitars, mostly Vintage. I've never bought a FretKing myself, just played them at NAMM. But I've owned several Vintage guitars. I owned this guitar from Vintage and this guitar from Harley Benton. Still have this guitar from Harley Benton. And here's why, and here's really what I want to talk about. These are Harley guitar companies at this point. And so I don't mean to like make light of anybody going out of business or people losing their jobs. I'm just going to suggest that actually it's not a very big loss for the guitar community. And here's why. That guitar and this guitar, I still own this guitar. I sold that one. Now, why? Why is the question here? If you look at these two guitars, the headstock is the exact same shape. The body shape is the exact same faux Les Paul style shape. Everything is the same about these guitars. The Vintage just is spec'd with like some Wilkinson kind of parts, Trev Wilkinson like kind of parts. In addition to that, I personally just happen to like the Harley Benton a little more. And I liked the looks of this one, of the Vintage, but I liked the Harley Benton a little more how it sounded. I put that Harley Benton up against a bunch of many times more expensive Les Pauls and demos we've done and stuff. And it's just been, it just punches so far above its weight class. Everybody knows that, right? But Harley Benton eventually came out with another guitar that looked like this. So, I mean, they looked even the exact same. And it's cheaper. They're always cheaper when it comes from this brand, more expensive when it comes from this brand. And this is something I also have noticed with the Vintage stuff and like the, you know, the classic vibe from Squier. Very similar feeling type of thing. Even some of the higher end Squier stuff. And even some other brands, like right here, I've got a guitar from Fesley, and they sent me this. I've done some videos for Fesley. They've only given me the things. I've never taken payment. I've just said, send me your guitar, and I'll do a review on it. And full disclosure, they gave me this guitar. I did a positive review on it. They sent me another guitar. You've never seen it on the channel because I just told them I don't really have a lot of good things to say about this one. And so, and then they sent me another third guitar or a fourth guitar, and I will do a video on that because it was pretty good. But I just say, send me the guitar and I'll check it out if you want. And sometimes you guys say to people, sorry, man, it's just not for me. But this thing is, I think, the best guitar you can get for the money. Now, this is a company that spec'd a guitar, right? They put Wilkinson stuff on it. They put a Wilkinson bridge, just like the Vintage brand does. And they did the whole neck in roasted, right? But they're a Chinese company who did this at a Chinese factory. And then instead of doing anything expensive, all they did was send them to Amazon. And you can ship and you can buy these in America out of an Amazon warehouse. That's the whole business. In China, they spec'd these guitars, made them, sent them to Amazon, and now they market them online. These are the single greatest buy you could make that I've been able to find in the guitar world. Done a bunch of videos on these, right? They're a lot less than other stuff. I think you get this guitar for like $240 shipped to your house. And I guess my question is like, when you see a company like Vintage or like FretKing go out of business, and again, I'm not saying anybody didn't work hard at those businesses, but it's actually not that hard to do to go spec a guitar and make a minimum order. You need money, and you kind of need to know something about guitars, but like case in point, like Thomann has done that with Harley Benton, and now you don't hear about some of these other brands like Xavier or gosh, what was that? Everyone had those Les Pauls that were cheap and everyone loved. Suze has one. I can't even remember right now. An Aria or something. Anyway, we have these companies today that are basically, I'm a distributor here, I'm a distributor there, right? And they're going to these factories overseas that are basically saying, hey, do you want us to build you a guitar? Yeah. Okay, if you want to spec out your headstock, it's more, but we got a headstock ready to go. Okay, well, we already have vintage tuners. Okay, well, we already have like the specs and stuff. We already have the shape of the body. And that's why Vintage and Harley Benton, two separate companies, end up with the exact same, guitar, basically, the exact same model being offered, just at different prices. And so like, I look at this and I go, well, what is the consumer really gaining from having a company like this and having a company like this? Well, okay, it becomes a race to the bottom, right? And so here's the problem. If you're competing with other people who have more resources, who have better distribution, and I would argue that Harley Benton has much better distribution, because not only do they sell direct in Europe through one of the largest stores in Europe, Thomann, right? Why I think Thomann is going to have the advantage here. But also, Thomann has started putting Harley Bentons in a warehouse in the United States, and they sell directly on Reverb, the largest marketplace in the United States for musicians' goods. So my point is, these companies are at some level not even guitar companies anymore. They're just middlemen distributors. China's making the guitars in these factories. They just want someone to make minimum orders and spec them out, right? Tell us what you want. I will tell you from working with the Chinese companies, they have no idea about any of this. They don't know what Americans want. They don't know what guitar. They are walking into this guitar culture and they're trying to understand you. I had a whole long conversation with like Fesley about like the Perloid pickguard and the aged, yellowed pickups. And I was like, this is like two competing aesthetics, like, do you want it aged? Then get an aged guard. If you want it Perloid, why would we do aged yellow here? They weren't the people who are working at this company and that company and that, they weren't paying attention to American pop culture 60 years ago, okay, when this guitar was invented, right? So they're coming along after the fact going, what do you guys want? We can make it, right? And so there's a lot of this. And so these companies in the middle are just sort of speccing guitars and making them, and they're getting to us, and they're really taking a bunch of the margin in the middle. And this is when I look at this guitar, I go, this guitar sells to me for $280. It's got Grover $240. Shipped to your door. It's got Grover tuners. It's got Wilkinson stuff. That's exactly what Vintage was saying they were doing. We got Trev Wilkinson stuff on here. We spec'd it this way and that way. And then along comes these guys who are like, yeah, we just got deeper pockets, race to the bottom. We don't have Trev Wilkinson, but we got this company, Tesla. Who the heck is that? I don't even know, but the pickups sound good. And they look good, right? And they spec'd out a good model, and now they sell it. And so for the consumer, this is an amazing buy. That's an amazing buy. You know what wasn't an amazing buy? The Vintage and FretKing stuff has just not been an amazing buy. I hate to say that, but, like I said, I owned both of those guitars, and I sold one because it was worth more money and it wasn't a better guitar. And I kept looking at them going, these are the same guitar, and I paid much more for this one. What's that about? I actually really liked them both. I thought they were both worth the money, but the more expensive one's only worth the money if you can't buy this one for less, right? If they got a Honda Accord down the street for 20 grand brand new and they got one for 33 brand new, it doesn't matter if every other place in the world has it for 40 grand. They're both good deals compared to the 40 grand, but where are you going to go? You're going to go to the place that has it for 20, not 33, because you want the best deal. You don't just want a good deal. So was anyone not getting their money's worth? Were they being ripped off with Vintage? No. Were they getting ripped off with FretKing? No. But it would appear that if guitar companies are not going to differentiate, if they're just going to go to China and they're just going to spec out stuff, and if those Chinese companies are just going to say, okay, well, I already got a guitar pretty much done. I already got it tooled up. I can put your name on it. What do you want? A little different hardware, different this? Then all we're doing is changing the assembly at the end. All we're doing is what you could do in a shop and what you and me could do just buying some aftermarket parts on Amazon. And if that's the case, these really aren't guitar companies anymore. They really are just middlemen bringing stuff like a Sears. Then the real guitar companies are the factories in China, and these are just all the house models they're going to sell through their distribution. And that's kind of what's happening with Harley Benton. It's not a guitar company. It's a brand of a distributor who realizes that, yeah, I got to sell Fender. Yeah, I got to sell Gibson. I got to sell all these brands. But when people are just looking for value and they're not really as much looking for the brand name, that's where I should capture all the margin. And the same thing is true, the same thing is true of all these other brands, Vintage and FretKing and, Xavier and stuff and all those other brands. It's just, they're house brands that are going to lose in the race to the bottom when people with distribution just go spec their own thing from China, because at the end of the day, they can cut you out, make the exact same model because you're not a guitar company making the guitars. You're just the guy who chooses the spec and chooses to market it. You're the distributor marketing guy in the middle. And the person with better, bigger marketing and distribution is going to undercut you. Your product becomes a feature, and that's the dog eat dog, kind of world of capitalism. So, no hate. I hope I don't sound like rude or mean or hateful or anything to those guys. I'm just pointing out that as a consumer, I've bought and sold these guitars, and I've never seen really why anyone would write home about them. And so it's not that surprising to me that they've lost the race to the bottom. That's just kind of an opinion I wanted to share. By the way, 50% off at ToneJunkieStore.com. Okay, that was ill-placed. I'll see you later.